Hey, everybody, and welcome back for a second episode of Power Up Podcast with myself, Adam McGrath, and Manny Alter. Manny, it's been a crazy week out there in the world. Good for us, bad for everybody else, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, so spent a couple of minutes on that. This week, gas prices here in Canada have gone through the roof, and it's really caused a lot of people who we've heard from in the past and a lot of people who we haven't heard from just to panic and call and, start the process. And, that's good. Starting a process is good. There's been a ton of interest this week. And I think for this podcast, we want to focus on the pay-as-you-go charging station or pay-for-use charging station. There are scenarios and applications where that works very well. And there are scenarios and applications where it doesn't work well at all, either because it doesn't work for that application or to expand that application or to accommodate the masses, it won't work. So let's jump straight into it. A pay-as-you-go charging station is exactly how it sounds. We're talking about level 2 here, obviously, not level 3. You find them in commercial plazas, you find them in condos, you find them in apartment buildings, you find them at hotels, you really find them at destinations. And essentially it's a universal charging station where a driver can pull up, engage the station through a credit card or an app or a fob, be charged for their energy used for their 2-3 hours that they're parked there. And then the owner of that station will be reimbursed by the charging station manufacturer. So a good application would be a commercial plaza. And, we spoke about this in the last podcast. This is something we just came off doing a large project. Mm-hmm. And that is a commercial plaza wants a couple of charging stations for customers that are coming to visit the plaza. And that is the best, easiest, and most concise way of giving charging in a friendly way of any car can pull up, anyone can use it, anyone can park there. You charge your vehicle, you drive off, and that's a great application for it. Where it's not a great application is hotels, apartment buildings, and condominiums. The easiest one for me, because to me it's black and white, some of those others may not be black and white, is the condominium. Condos have owners in it. People live in those condos and want to come home and park their vehicles in their parking spots, go to sleep, wake up, and drive their vehicles away. Condos that are spending money on pay-as-you-go charging stations, not for visitor parking. So I want to clarify. A condo that calls us up and says we're a high-end condo, we want to offer our visitors an amenity, pay-as-you-go charging stations, that's the way to go. Condos that are calling up and saying, we want to accommodate our owners in the parking garage, pay-as-you-go stations are the most expensive way to give you the least amount of charging with the most amount of headache.
Well, what do you kind of say to those condos that come to you, property managers, board members, that say, I only got 1 or 2 people in the building right now that need an EV system or EV station or something like that?
Yeah, I go back to the swimming pool analogy. If you know that, only 2 people are going to swim today, but in a year from now, 30 people are going to want to swim, you're not building a pool based on those 2 people and building a small lap pool. You're going to build out your infrastructure to accommodate the masses. And it's less and less that this is coming up where property managers are pushing back and saying, no, we just want 1 or 2 pay-as-you-go charging stations. And just quickly, you have 2 pay-as-you-go charging stations. You ended up spending $14,000 to implement them. The second you have more EV drivers than charging stations, now you have to start scheduling people, moving people around. You have a piece of hardware now that the condominium owns and the condominium has to pay with contracts, fees, revenue sharing. So it really doesn't work.
I think I already know the answer to this one, but I know a lot of condos and stuff kind of entertain this idea because of return on investment. So I don't know if you just want to touch on that a bit.
That's a good one. So that's a big misconception. There really is no return on investment. And I'll take 2 angles. Number one, the proof's in the pudding. If there was a business angle here, you would have 30 companies calling you up and saying, let's put in those stations for free. We'll do them for you. We'll take a cut of the profit. No one's doing that. And the reason no one's doing that is because there's no business case and there's no ROI. Once you've paid off these stations, which could be anywhere between 4 to 6 years, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to have to upgrade those stations. So customers that are calling us up and implementing pay-as-you-go charging stations in the right applications, for the most part, are not doing it as a revenue stream. They're doing it because it's 2022 and they want to offer that to their clients.
So condos, is a no.
Condos is a
Now-
no for their owners, and that's a simple one to me. Apartment buildings, now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's also a no. So let's differentiate. Small apartment buildings, triplexes, apartment buildings that don't have a lot of parking or residents in them, pay-as-you-go may be the way to go. I'm talking about apartment buildings that have 40 or more residents with 40 or more parking spots. And let's dissect it again. This is something, again, that happened this week to us. We had a apartment building owner reach out to us and basically say, we have a couple of sites. We'd like to put 2 to 3 pay-as-you-go charging stations in each of those locations. And again, you're looking at $5,000 to $7,000 to set one of those up. 2 would be, 10 to 14. 3 would be $15,000 to $21,000. That's an investment that now you're stuck with 3 pieces of hardware that you need to maintain. You need to pay annual fees. You need to revenue share, and you can't really monetize on them because someone else is doing the billing for you on the back end. So now you're an apartment building. You have 3 pay-as-you-go charging stations. You have ongoing costs. The second the masses start saying we want EV charging, those 3 stations will not accommodate. Now, I always hear this from property managers or condos or, whatever the application is. Well, let the people fight over it. I don't care. And that's true. You can have the people fight over it. But do you want to be that condo or apartment building in 2025 that has 2 charging stations for 30 people and say, go fight over it, when the building to the right of you and the building to the left of you has proper EV infrastructure that they didn't really pay that much more for? They just set it up in a smart way. So what is the smart way? And this is why, again, the podcast is called Power Up Your Podcast, because at the end of the day, in those applications, the issue isn't charging. It's the power that is the issue. So you have an apartment building. Let's do a load assessment. Let's see what your EV capacity is. Here's another thing. When you put in 3 pay-as-you-go charging stations, you could share the power between the 2. But when someone taps a credit card, in their mind, they're saying, I'm renting that machine for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 hours until I move my car. Don't be sharing my power. I'm paying a premium, $2, $3 an hour. Don't be sharing my power.
Yeah.
If you focus on the power and you set up a system, again, we come to the Evolute, which is, one of the systems out there where you say, okay, we have limited power. So we only have power for 10 vehicles. Let's take the power of 10 vehicles. Let's feed it into this 400 amp rated panel that can not only load manage, but it can track, monitor, and bill on behalf of the apartment building owner. So now the apartment building owner may have to make a $40,000 investment, which is anywhere from 2 to 3 times the investment they wanted to make. But now what do they have is as follows. They have a system that can accommodate up to 20 EV charging stations. They don't have to invest in a charging station. You can just have NEMA 1450 plugs on the wall or inexpensive $500, $600, $700 charging stations for the renters to use. You can monetize now because you can charge a renter a premium to park in that parking spot, whereas in a pay-as-you-go station, you've paid for that station and there's no way to monetize because you can't rent that out. It's there for anyone to use. And you now can do all the collections without having to go to a third party and say, I'm going to share in my revenue with you. And we're finding more and more apartment buildings where even up to 6 months ago, they weren't interested in this. The apartment building owners are coming around and saying, we get this. EV is coming if we like it or not. And that was I think the unknown in 6 or 8 months ago. I think today everyone sees where the economy is going and where this industry is going. And if you have a parking garage that has 100 parking spots, you can almost guarantee that in the near future, there's going to be 20 people driving EV. So if you have a apartment building on one side that has 2 stations or 3 stations that the owner spent $21,000 on, and there's 3 stations, ongoing fees, and the apartment building next door that has 20 plugs available for 20 renters to park their vehicles, plug in overnight, share the power. In that scenario, no one cares if you share the power or not. You're not renting something for the hour. You're parking your car, going to sleep, waking up, and wanting a full charge. So that's what we're seeing there.
Very nice. Very nice. Sounds good to me. You mentioned as well, on top of apartments and condos was hotels. And that to me kind of off the bat was like, pay-as-you-go parking kind of makes sense. But then you have a whole different idea and is actually really good.
Yeah. So a hotel, again, a hotel that calls me up and says to me, look, we want to be a destination where people from off the street come and charge their vehicles and it's open to everyone. Yeah, pay-as-you-go station may make sense there. But most hotels that are engaging with us today are essentially telling us, look, we know there's going to come a time where 30% of people, staying in our hotel are going to be driving EV. We want to make sure that those EV spots are specific or exclusive, to those people staying in the hotel. We don't want random people off the street using the charging stations. So again, we take the same model for 3 or 4 charging stations that this hotel would have spent on proprietary, expensive charging stations that come with the fees and the contracts and the revenue sharing. And now you're stuck with a expensive piece of hardware that will have to be upgraded. Again, go to the Evolute model, install a load management system that can balance the load on its own, or if you have 5 guests who are coming for a conference and need to leave in an hour, and 5 guests who are staying overnight, and you can ask them when they check in, are you using your car? When do you need the car full? You could get a lot of data from them. So you can let the system do its thing and just share its power, or you can actually prioritize from your desktop at the reception check-in to now figure out when people need to go and prioritize charge. And then at the end of the stay, you are making a bill for that, that person who came to stay in your hotel, that client, and you could just push a either flat rate and say, look, you use the station for, one night, it's $25, or you can base it on actual, energy used and track that energy and say, okay, based on X, Y, and Z, we're adding $7 to your stay. So at the end of the day, it's planning for the future, not just the immediate need, thinking it through in terms of what are the ongoing costs, what are the functionalities, what are my issues that I need to find a solution for? And I think, and we'll wrap it up here, I think that's the key here. EV charging is not complicated. There's a lot of information that you can get from guys like us and other companies. It's really understanding what is my need, what is the solution I'm trying to fix, and then looking at those products that work for you rather than just saying, you know what, I don't get it. Just throw in 2 pay-as-you-go charging stations and we'll deal with it in the future. I can almost guarantee you if you do that, you're making a bad investment.
Good. All right. A lot of information to kind of process, but I think that was really good insight into pay-as-you-go and how to steer clear. All right. So we're more than happy to hear if anybody has any suggestions for topics or things to talk about, but I know we got a list that we're trying to crack down. So we're just going to do our best to get to as many topics as we can, as fast as we can, and just keep pumping these out.
Amazing. And yeah, we got some good feedback from our first podcast, and we hope to continue to pump out stuff. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thanks, Manny.